So in this video we'll be talking about use reducer. Now what is use reducer? So it is an alternative to use state. It accepts a reducer of type state, action and a new state and returns the current state paired with a dispatch. I will show you what that dispatch and new state and action everything is in a bit. Use reducer is usually preferable to use state. Now when you have complex state logic that involves multiple sub-values or when the next state depends on the previous one, use reducer also lets you optimize performance for components that trigger deep updates because you can pass dispatch down instead of callbacks. Now I will show you a counter example for this, the way we can use counter for this. So let's start off right here, and you can go here and instead of use context here, this time it will be use reducer first. So that's where you need to make your first change. Then the rest shall be removed. We shall delete the rest except for the render part because we will be rendering something. So now here it's actually we are in index. Let's not do it in index. Let's create another component for this and we'll do it in app itself or something called counter. So let's import. We can actually remove use reducer here because use reducer will not be used here but in counter app. Okay, so import. We have not created it yet. We will create it. So we will be importing counter. So let's call the app as counter. So that's counter from. We have not created the file yet. So that will be counters. Now before we save this, let's go right here and create a new file called counter.js, and inside of index we will be calling the counter component. Okay, so we can leave index.js for now, just like that for now. So let's go back to counter.js, and right here in counter.js we can import React and use reducer. And from React, now right after this we will be giving an initial state which is equal to 0, and let's create a variable called reducer which takes two values, that is state and action as I said earlier, and let's give it an arrow function and open the brackets. Now inside this where the reducer is, we'll give our increment, decrement and reset values. Now before we do that, we can actually create our function, and inside of this, inside of our function component that's counter, we will create the use, we will call the use reducer. So here we will be doing something as count and something called dispatch. Now that is equal to use reducer, and here we will be calling the reducer. Right here we will be taking the values and the initial state. Alright, so then we'll give it a return and a div. Now inside of this, let's first give the count value. So that's count, and after this let's put three buttons. This is the first button where on click is equal to, we will be using our arrow function to call the method. So this will be dispatch. Alright, so that will be increment. This is not done yet, so this will dispatch the value from here when the action will be taken. So increment, and right outside of this button it will be increment. Now the next button on click will again be a dispatch, and inside of dispatch we will be dispatching decrement this time. And the last one will be reset. Let's just copy paste this. We will be dispatching a reset right here, and we'll call the button as reset. And here in our reducer method, the state and action, so what we'll do is we'll use a switch. So when the action is taken, we will put a case called increment, and inside of this I am going to return state, the initial state plus 1. It's as simple as that. And so after this I'm going to put another case, and this will be decrement, and here I will return state -1, and the last one will be case reset, where we will be returning the initial state, which we introduced right here, the variable initial state, which is equal to 0. And right after this I am going to put a semicolon here. So what is happening right now? So when we click dispatch, it will dispatch to increment right here, and the action that will be taken would be increment, because that is our dispatch, and the state will be increased to +1. Now here it's const count and dispatch, and use reducer will take the initial state, and that will be the initial state, that is 0, and the count value will be equal to 0, and the dispatch will be dispatched using the function where we will dispatch the increment, decrement, and reset. So we'll save this, and we will save index.js. Hopefully there are no errors. Dot counter does not exist, so let's just check that out. We have not exported it, so let's export counter. So export default counter. Now when we save this, there are no errors. It expects a default case here, but there should be no errors, just a warning. Alright, so we have done it. So it's when we increment the value, it's going to increment. When we decrement, it is going to decrement, and we can reset the value right here. That's a basic app. I know we've done this before, but this is the most simplest example to explain hooks. And hooks is a little advanced topics when it comes to React, and you can do more research and learn more about it, but this is just the basics of React, and we will be using some of these concepts. We might be using some of these concepts, and I hope you understood this.